Hey everyone. Today I'm going to take you inside one of my mixes in progress. This is a mix that I'm working on for a client. I'm partway through, and I just did a couple things today that I think might be interesting for you. Big shout outs to the artist on this one, Will Henshaw. This is a project called Nature Beat, and I do all the mixing and mastering for it. And it's available exclusively on focusatwill.com, which is a site that is bespoke music that helps you to focus better while you're working. All right, let's hop into the mix. So the first thing I want to do is just play a section of the song so you can get a vibe of what this is like. Okay, so the first technique that I want to show you is something that I'm doing on the bass. So the bass in this tune is coming from the plugin Sub-Boom Bass, which is awesome, and I love it. So let's just solo that up so you can hear what's going on. You got super deep, juicy bass. And I want this to be able to cut through on smaller systems. So if you're not listening on like crazy deep planar magnetic headphones like I am, or working on systems with good low frequency extension, if you're just listening on regular consumer systems, then you need to have some type of process that's going to help it to cut on smaller speakers that are not able to produce those super low frequencies. So obviously I'm using saturation. I've got isotope trash on here. That's a great one, but I want to emphasize it a little bit more. So what I would usually do is I would load up a dynamic EQ like FabFilter Pro Q3, and I just take a look at, where the harmonics are sitting in the sound. So you can see that the first harmonic here is sitting at about 141. So I might take that and give that a little boost and play with that. I could make it wider, narrower. I could make it dynamic, like so. But the problem is when the bass note moves. So you can see that the harmonic is shifting around as you would expect as the synth is playing higher and lower notes. So that node that I've used to carefully target that harmonic is not going to be accurate. So what do you do here? Do you take this and automate the frequency by hand or something? No. So I'm going to show you the tool, and you may have seen this. It's a plugin by SoundRadix, and it's called Surfer EQ. And it literally does what it says. The node will surf based on the frequency. Okay, so check out what this node is doing that's targeting that same harmonic. Huge difference, right? I'm also using a low shelf just to knock a little super low sub off the sound. Let's just bypass that, and I'm going to take a fresh instance. I'm going to show you exactly how I set that up. It's really easy, but I just want you to see the process. Okay. So the first thing I did is I targeted that particular node on that harmonic. So if we take a look here, and then I created a boost of a few dB. And I like this because I love to type in the values because I like to be surgical like that. All you have to do is click this button called Surf, and magically it will follow that harmonic around. Yeah, amazing. There's a lot more to it that you can do with this plugin. It can receive a MIDI input. It's a pretty deep plugin if you get into the settings, but just at a basic level, that set it up really quick. Can you use it? I love that. I love that. So that's how the bass sounds with Surfer EQ on it. So let's just go back to my original setup that I had, and let's listen to it in the mix, and I'll pop it in and out so you can hear the difference and listen to how that particular harmonic helps the bass to cut on whatever system you're listening on. The next thing that I want to show you is EQing the kick to work with the bass, and in particular, removing a kind of knocky resonance out of the kick. So let's listen to everything with the kick in the mix amongst everything else. Okay, so this technique is going to be using Pro Q3. And I'm going to deactivate what I've done, and I want you to listen to the kick and listen for that knockiness. I've removed it, and now that I've disabled the plugin, you're going to hear it again. Okay, so there's a sound in that kick that I'm just not loving. It's a really distorted kick, and this is kind of the vibe that we're going for. And let's just go ahead and load up a fresh instance of Pro Q3. And what I do if I hear something that I am not liking and I want to EQ out is I take a guess. And usually with kicks, it's somewhere between 250 and 500. So I will set the node down around 250, and we're going to scan through and listen for that particular sound. Now, if you haven't used this feature before, you can narrow the band that you're previewing. Okay, so you can do that. I'm holding the Command key on the Mac, and I'm just scrolling up and down or moving my mouse up and down to narrow or widen, and you can still move left or right. So you can use that to really focus in on the band that you want to work with. Okay, so once I've gotten close and I kind of think I know where it is, what I will do is I will take a lot out of it. So we're going to take 8 dB out, and let's target this in right on 350. Now, I like that, but I'm not 100% sure if I've got the EQ in the right position. So a lot of times when it comes to the fine adjustments, this is a feature that I really love about Pro Q3. Is I will use the copy function, and then I'll use the AB. So I've taken the state at 350 hertz, and I've taken it to a fresh copy, and now I can target a different frequency. So we can say 250, and then I can flip back and forth between those two frequencies with the click of a button, so you can really quickly determine which one is really the sweet spot. And it's useful here to listen in the mix. So we're just going to go from my A position to my B position and see which one works better. Another thing I'll note here is I'm going to push this up by 6 dB. Rather than soloing something and just listening to it in isolation, it can often be useful to listen in context, but when you're listening in context, it's harder to hear the element that you're working with. So I will just give it a nice fat boost to put it right on top and then eliminate that after I'm done. Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing when we have it at 250 hertz that it's not catching the knock. I can hear it clearly in the mix. It's too low, and I'm hearing the knock come through. And then as soon as we flip to the A position that was centered at 350, then we're really hearing that knock get suppressed. I will put it back on solo now, so that you can really hear and hone in on the difference, okay? So listen to the A and B states carefully. Nice, we got it. So that is using the A-B function in ProQ3 to be able to find parts that you want to EQ subtractively out of a drum element. Now here's the finished EQ that I did. And a lot of times when I take a little bit out of something, I add a little bit back. So I'm kind of shifting the energy in the sound. And in this case, I did a dynamic node and gave the kick a little extra oomph up at 1K and then just rolled out some of the very top end. So here's what it sounds like with the completed EQ. The final technique I want to show you is how I added some widening to be able to get this bongo to sit perfectly in the mix. So let's have a listen to this full section here. This is later on in the project. All right, so I'm going to disable the sends because there's some reverb and delay that is happening on that I don't want to get in our way of listening to what I did. The first place I want to start with is just listening to the dry sound, the original sound. So for me, it was just a bit mono. It was coming down the center, and I wanted to widen this so it can take up some space in the stereo field. So the very first thing that I did was I used a ProQ3, and what I wanted to do is figure out where the fundamental and the harmonics of the drum are coming from. So I'm using the spectrum analyzer. So you'll see the spectrum analyzer has turned blue and frozen, and that's a kind of power tip in ProQ3. If you left click and hold in the spectrum area, it will do that. And then from there, you can actually grab these EQ nodes and actually create a change. So what I've done here is I've grabbed the fundamental and a harmonic of the drum. What I want to do is reset those so they're not going to be static. And I'm going to give them each plus 3 dB to make them dynamic. And then I'm going to just open the Q a little bit. Okay, so here we are. But I said I wanted to widen the sound, right? So ProQ3 is great because it allows you to take each individual node and do separate stereo field settings for it. So I'm going to take this first node, and instead of stereo, I'm going to select left. And then the second node, I'm going to select and go right. This could be the opposite. You could go right and then left. It just depends on how you want it to sound. And so now we get this. So it gives it kind of a subtle widening effect, which I'm really liking there. And then I built on that by using a plugin by NUGEN Audio called Stereoizer. And this is a mono-compatible stereo widening plugin. So it does some really crazy stuff. It's not a deep dive into the plugin. I'm just going to turn it on and turn it off. I'm literally using one of the presets called Percussion Pusher that I've tweaked. I've made it a bit less extreme. So let's listen without and with. Huge difference on that. Now, the piece that I really want to hone in on here is this is mono compatible. This is not doing something that's going to cause problems if this part of your mix ever gets summed to mono, or if somebody's listening to it on like a Bluetooth speaker and you don't get the actual stereo separation. So I'm going to intentionally mono downstream of the plugin with the plugin, and I'm going to turn it on and off. So I'm going to mono everything. virtually no impact on the clarity and the punch of the mono signal. So this is one of those have your cake and eat it too techniques. So I love that. I love that. And let's listen to it all in the mix, and I'll pump up the bongos so you can really hear them. Right on. I hope you enjoyed that tour through my workflow and this mix. And if you haven't checked out that Surfer EQ or the NUGEN Audio Stereoizer plugins yet, amazing, right? Like, I just love plugins that are unique and have a different approach and that you can throw into a mix and get really good results really fast. And I also love learning new things about plugins that I've owned for a while, and that just continues to be the case with FabFilter Pro Q3. It is my go-to EQ that I use literally every day in every mix, and I hope you learned a couple new tricks that will allow you to expand your knowledge there. If you liked this video, please hit the subscribe button if you're not already. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this one. And if you're feeling inspired to continue learning, I have a whole playlist of many other mixing techniques just like these ones in a playlist right here on YouTube. So I'll drop a card and a link below the video. You can click that and keep learning. I'll see you in the next video.